Hi there, it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be focusing on these 4 dies from Aliexpress on Aliexpress. Now these 4 dies are layering dies, so they are made to layer up one on top of the other. That doesn't mean though that you aren't able to use them individually. The one on the bottom left is the kind of bottom die that you would use at the very back, but it does have the most detail, so you can definitely use it by itself. The two at the top are the same size hearts and everything. However, it has all of these little cutouts here that makes it a little bit different. So that is the layer that would go at the very top. So they're the same except for the cutouts. So I'm going to use these 3 dies that are left here on my first card, and we are going to see 3 cards today. But I just want to show you kind of 3 quick cards that you are able to put together. So these are 5 by 5 inch cards here that are 110 pound Nina Solar White, and I have 2 of them at the moment. Now I have the bottom die, which I've laid right up against the fold line, and you can see that there are all the details there and kind of the smallest hearts. And that one I have just die cut out in the white card base. The next layer I'm going to do is going to be this kind of book print. And it is exactly that. So it's a really, really thin layer of book text. So what I did want is for these 3 layers not to be too thick, because obviously you're piling them up one on top of the other, and I don't want to make a super heavy card. The third and final layer that will go on top is this kind of navy cardstock. It's a thinner, I think this is an 80-pound cardstock, and this will go at the very front. So I am just going to cut this out because obviously it's bigger than I need, and just trim up those little corners and we are good to go. So really easy and quick. I'm going to layer them all together just using some liquid glue. This is a glue bottle from AliExpress. However, I put in it the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. I've used that for years now, and it's my favorite go-to glue still. And these are really easy to line up because all you have to do is line up the top cutout of the hearts. So there's nothing tricky about it. You just line it up, and that way all the hearts will kind of naturally fall into place. And anything that overhangs down the bottom here, don't worry about that, because I will just fold the card shut and I'll be able to kind of cut off any of the excess. So that's nice and easy, an easy problem to solve. And then I just want to do, I mean, you could probably definitely leave the card like this, but I just thought to kind of finish it off and add a little bit more to the card. I am going to, this is the second card base here, and I'm just going to mask off using some post-it notes the back of the card. And then, I mean, you could definitely use some blue cardstock, but I am going to use some tumbled glass and some broken china to kind of create almost an ombre look between these 2 inks on the kind of fold over part of my card. So I've got tumbled glass at one end and the broken china at the other. Obviously one is quite a lot darker than the other, so I'm just going to work them in together. And this is the Nina cardstock, which does blend really well, but not quite as well as if I were using watercolor paper. But I just find if you go back and forward, you get a really nice blend. The other thing that is going to help me here is I'm actually going to put some sparkle paste over top of this, so that will kind of help me disguise any blemishes that I have. I have this stencil here that is also from Ali, and I will link it down below if I can find it. These are some sparkle paste that I purchased from a local shop called Lincraft that we have here in New Zealand, and I purchased them recently, so I'm just trying them out at the moment. I will reserve judgment for later on. And they are kind of nice to spread on. They are very, very sparkly. And I'm just using a plastic palette knife to spread it through. The plastic palette knives are my favorite by far out of any that I've tried. So I'll link those as well. You can see that I actually pulled up a little of the background there. I can cover that up just fine using some ink, but I must say at the time I was a bit like, but it worked out fine, as you can see here. Now I'm going to adhere the two card bases together, and I'm just going to do that by adding a little bit of liquid glue, and I can kind of line them up nice and neatly using that wiggle time with the liquid glue, and you can kind of see the finished card. I decided not to use any sentiment there. I just like the plain card as is. The next time I am going to actually take out the base die here. So I just wanted to kind of show you that what you can do is use these almost as a stencil. So I have taken some black cardstock. This is kind of just some cardstock that's not super precious to me, I guess. And I have cut out those three dies. I'm going to be using one of the middle kind of sets of dies and cutting one of my card bases further towards the edge this time rather than up against the score line like I had last time. And you can see that I've just cut it out there. I'm leaving that part plain white, and I'm lining up the black stencil with the outside of the white card base that's underneath, so I know that the hearts will all line up. And I cut this out in cardstock, but if you wanted to create a stencil that you wanted to use over and over again, I would cut this out in acetate, and that way you can kind of just wipe off the inks when you're done and use it over and over. But anyway, back to the card, I am lifting up my black cardstock, and when I take this up, you can see the really nice kind of pattern that we are left with. It is the pattern that the second layer of the hearts die would usually leave, but we have just used some ink to create the same effect. Now I have a happy birthday die, and I have happy up the side and kind of birthday along the bottom. And I'm actually just using an Ombre Ink Pad from Aliexpress. Now I've had these ink pads for ages, and they've lasted really, really well. Then I'm going to use the darkest pink of the same ink pad to do the happy down the side, but I used more of the ombre effect for the birthday one. Then I have some pink cardstock, and that way when I put down this here, I really like the kind of final effect. I'm going to use some Nuvo drops just to add the final touches, and I'm going to actually add a pink one and just kind of add 3 little dots to the sides of some of the hearts. This is kind of a close-up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And then I kind of decide to go back in with a white one and add even more. I'm definitely one of those people who sometimes I don't know when to stop. Most of the time I do, but sometimes I don't. And this is probably one of those cards. But I do like how it turned out, and I actually like how all of these cards turned out. And I think with all 3 of these cards, even though these dies are hearts, and I guess traditionally we think of reds and pinks and things when we're using hearts, I tried to use a really different color palette for each of these cards just so that you can get an idea that it doesn't have to be pink or red. This is the 3rd and final card, and I'm going to use one of the dies here again. I have some of Alina's double-sided adhesive. This is just kind of sticky sheets, which are really good for adhering to foam and paper and things, but I'm just going to cut it out just as it is. So this is just like a sticky sheet that has release paper on both sides, and you can see I have cut it down to fit my card there. It's actually a little bit longer at the bottom, but I'm not worried about that at the minute. And I'm going to peel back just the top of the heart so that I can line it up, because I want the hearts to go to the top of my card. And I'm going to just kind of gently eke it down until it's all nice and flat on my card. I will cut off that bottom bit there because I don't need that, obviously. This is some rainbow foil. Now these ones in particular are from Deco foil, but I'm sure lots of different foil companies would work. And I've just peeled off the whole front of the adhesive now, and I'm going to use my finger, and then I kind of pull my sleeve down over my hand so that I can just kind of really flatten it all out and make sure that there is contact with all of the adhesive. And then all I'm going to do is peel it back, and it looks beautiful. Now one thing with this card here, I must admit, this is obviously a super simple card, but I'm actually going to turn my filming lights off because it's really hard to catch kind of the rainbow effect of this foil. It looks much different under my filming lights, so I have my lights on here and I'm just going to turn them off so that you can kind of get the proper effect, and it's kind of not so glary. So I'm sorry that that's the case, and yeah, I couldn't kind of fix it unless I turned my lights off, so I turned them off a couple of times so that you can kind of understand what it looks like to me in real life. And as I said, all three of these cards are super simple and super quick. I just wanted to show you a range of ways that you can use these heart dies without getting the same look over and over. Now, I did just want to quickly show you, this is one of the cutouts from that die before, and you can use all those individual hearts in the same exact way. So don't throw them out, that's for sure. Anyway, getting back to the card, and I just want to finish it off, I have this stamp set here, which I have the coordinating dies for, and I have just added some of the double-sided sticky sheets to the back of it, which basically turns your die cuts into a sticker, which makes it nice and easy. So I'm just adhering down the word birthday, and then the happy one kind of does all 5 letters separately, so I'm just popping those down in white. So it's the same white as the card base. As I said, a super simple card, and in a minute again I'm going to turn off my filming lights so that you can see the final card. So I really like the look of this one, albeit it is super simple. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video that shows you 3 ways of using these heart dies to create 3 different looks, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you so much. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Bye!